This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of multi-practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is someone I'm excited for you all to get to know because I've known her for a little while. She's a dedicated optometrist with over 25 years of ocular health experience. She's spent the past 2 decades serving the Texas Panhandle and known for her commitment to advancing vision care, particularly in challenging contact lens cases. She's also an active member of the optometric community where she volunteers her time with Heal the City Amarillo and mentors aspiring healthcare professionals. She's owner and optometrist of Eye Care Plus. Please welcome Dr. Jaya Pathapati. Jaya, welcome.
Hi, Ankit. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I love the way you practice. So let's jump into this. So what's the most important thing that helped you grow your businesses or your empire?
I don't know if I would call it an empire, but my practice, I think, taking each patient to the core. Every patient is 100% important to the practice. And we practice that way from the beginning. That was always my core value that I felt was what caused us to grow to this level at this point. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what does that mean to you? Like, because I think sometimes people say that they focus that way. Give me a couple of stories of how it helped you grow your business.
I practice in Amarillo now for 25, 26 years. And so I started out in retail. So I practiced next to Sears, Sears Optical. And at the mall, that was the highlight of town when we moved in. Just started part-time, had little ones at home, and my husband was busy with his practice at that time. So it was just 3 days a week, just doing my thing and maybe having 2 patients on the books at that time. And so when those patients came in, I had all of the time in the world to spend with them. So they've seen me grow. So when I left to start my private practice 6 years after that, I had close to 9,000 patients that followed me to private practice. And for me, I didn't even realize it was that many patients until we were scanning everybody in to start our private practice schedules. And I said, oh my gosh, where did all these patients come from? So you might be too young to realize Sears had a lot of old people coming in to buy. That was the place to go to buy all the equipment and lawn stuff. So those patients eventually let their families to come in, their grandchildren, and so that's what the time I invested in each patient built to the next patient referral, to the next patient referral. And I remember we had one patient that said, "You're a great doc." And I said, "Okay, thank you." And they said, "What are you doing in this hole in the wall?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean this hole in the wall?" So it was a very tiny office, less than, 900 square foot. It was me, myself, and I doing everything from technician to the front desk to the doctor. And I said, "I don't see it as a hole in a wall." I said, "You should never judge a book by its cover. Just because the office is small doesn't mean you're not going to get great care." So it's how you represent yourself to your patient and how you talk to them about their wellness for the future. And of course, starting at 2000, gosh. So at that time, technology was not even a thing to talk about. It was just our, huge dinosaur NCT and our Phoropter and slit lamp and the BIO. That's all we had. So it wasn't even about fancy technology, fancy things. But it was just educating the patient and just going at it every single day, basically. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. And now, how does that? Can you give me an example of how it might have informed a business decision? You had a crossroads. You could have went this way or this way.
Yeah. So I was very content with my practice, building it up slowly. And then it came to a point where some of the technology was emerging. And I think the really one big decision for me to say I got to do something different was my slit lamp broke. So my slit lamp, and of course it was lease at that time with the equipment and everything. So my slit lamp, I literally needed an extra arm to keep the light on while I'm examining because I would get 2 seconds before the reset light just went berserk. It's that closed. So I had asked my renter person, corporate person, people to send somebody. And of course, we're a little bit rural. So somebody had to come in from Dallas to get this fixed. And I asked them, they said, okay, we'll see when we can get somebody out. And meanwhile, I'm struggling every day to do a good exam on these patients with this equipment. And I had no opportunity to fix it myself. So they said, okay, he's going to come in next week. And I said, okay. So I actually took off that day. Um, so the next day when I came in, my optical manager who was running the optical said, well, I had to let this guy in from Dallas. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, oh, yeah, he came in. He said he's here to fix your slit lamp. And I said, okay, he wasn't supposed to come in until next week. So I was very happy. So I go in, he cleaned the slit lamp, but never took care of the original problem that I was dealing with. And then he went back to Dallas. So very aggravating. And so I called corporate and I said, hey, listen, I'm still having the same problem. Well, he was just there. And I said, you didn't tell me he was coming. So miscommunication was so frustrating because I'm back to square one with the problem that I originally. And I said, I just can't take care of patients in the way I want with this. And that kind of slowly led me to say, what's next? And that's when I teamed up with one of my colleagues who was also at the mall to start our private practice now. So next year it will be 20 years. So of private practice plus. And yeah, so
That's that's awesome. So a one broken slit lamp and your values drove you to like, yeah, I've had enough.
yeah, yeah, because it really did affect patient care in the long run, right? So, with those 2, 3 seconds I had with the light, kept turning it on. Did I miss something? It makes you not be at your best examining a patient when you have, you know, an instrument that's not in your favor, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it's almost like these decisions compound over years.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, and
Absolutely.
it's really cool to see that
Yes.
because we'll get into a little bit of how you practice now.
Yeah.
But I think in a large, I mean, Sears no longer is here, obviously, but I do remember going to Sears when I was a
Yeah.
kid. It was a
Yeah.
fun place to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sears
They're
catalog would come with the
very
mail.
fond memories, and I think I would not be where I'm at had I not gone through that journey, of having all of that, so, yeah.
Mm, excellent. So, what are some things? And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, two locations, correct?
Yes, now we have 2 locations, they're both in, Amarillo. So, our main location is the one that I built and moved in, 2018, and so COVID, obviously, it made people made a lot of decisions during COVID, good or bad, and, so getting really bored, not being able to see patients, what do you do, what do you do? So, just driving around with my husband one day, and he said, you should open a satellite clinic on this side of town because 'cause you're always complaining how the patients on that side, it's a little still lower socioeconomic, patient, there, and so there wasn't very good eye care on that side. So, of course, the satellite clinic, went into a little more because I said, "Well, I can't have this stellar practice on one side and then have, like, a dinky little place." So, I kind of invested in very good technology. We took over a space. It was meant to be. I think they called and they said, well, we don't have an open space for you. And I said, okay, that's fine. It's not meant to be. Then they called me a week later. The deal fell through with somebody and they said, okay, but we need to know like within a day. And I said, okay, where do I sign? So I'm a little impulsive on certain things and good or bad. But yeah, that then revamped into a 4-room exam lane, with OCT and everything in that office. So, that's yeah, 2001 we opened and yeah, here we are.
That's amazing. And, and what were some of the things that you ran into that you didn't expect when you started growing? Like, what were some of the things like, wow, that was surprising.
I Growth, I think, has a lot of challenges. I am not a great business person. It was always just about optometry and my patient care and doing my charts and all of that. Then as we grew, then it's like, "Oh my gosh, do I have to learn how to do payroll? I have to learn how to do numbers. I have to what's a KPI? Like, didn't know any of that, right? So it was just paying the bills, paying the rent, paying myself a little bit and moving on. So it really, that business aspect was very scary to me. And I still am very uncomfortable in certain things. So that led me to, okay, educate yourself because no one's going to teach you. There were very few resources at that time. Now there's a whole host of resources, I feel like, that if you wanted to learn more with all the programs we have out there for the optometric professionals. But at that time, it was like, okay, going into different reading about business aspects, how to do this and so forth. So it was a lot of um, bumps in the road for me in learning. So my partner who retired in 2018 actually was doing his MBA while I was growing the practice and so forth. So he was supposed to do all of the business aspect while I handled the patient care aspect. But unfortunately, due to some unforeseen illness and so forth, he had to leave the practice a little sooner than anticipated, which means everything got put on my plate. So, without an MBA, I had to trudge and kind of learn everything. It's still a very big learning process for me and a lot of stuff. So,
So you've been successful growing. You take advantage. It seems like you've kind of led with how do I take care of the community, how do I take care of the patients,
right.
and the business kind of followed.
Yes.
Um, and so tell me about some of the ways that you actually you go above and beyond. Like you go way deeper. I think in community care, in
Yeah.
terms of patient care, inside your four walls, than I've seen a lot of doctors do. Talk to us about a little bit about like, you start off at Sears, right, as just a retail type situation, and now talk to us about how you practice a little bit, like what you offer, how and where you are today, and we could talk a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah.
So kind of paint the picture of before and after.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, of course, besides my slit lamp story, was technology was just emerging. And for me, I was very limited in what I could do at that point. So when I partnered with my ex partner, we actually met at an AOA conference. We both came out, diabetic talk. And so we sat down, had coffee, and said, oh, I wish I could do this for our patient. I wish I could, learn and do this. And at that time, we were both very limited in our what scope of what we could do in our four walls at the mall lease. So basically, it was a coffee napkin where we started to put an envision of our dream practice. I wish I could do this, and it's funny. I should have kept the napkin, but yeah, I wish I could do this and I wish I had this. And it was basically a really nice list of our dream practices. And it seemed to be merging very nicely. It was his vision and my vision. And so then we were like, let's get this going. And then my slit lamp story just came right after that. And I'm like, I'm done, ready to move forward, fast forward. So then we started looking at spaces and then we took on, I mean, coming from less than 900 square foot, we took on a lease that was 5,000. Oh,
It's a big jump,
uh,
yeah.
I said, what are we doing here? And so it was great. It was in this heart of where we wanted to grow. A lot of neighborhoods, families, and so forth, not too far from the mall, so people would recognize our names and so forth. So we took this lease. We had 2 lanes we equipped and slowly added another lane and another. We ultimately got to 4 lanes, I think, within 2, 3 years. But we had a lot of vacant space. It was like, okay, let's go play frisbee over there. It's like, what do you do there, right? And so as things started emerging, we started looking at like, oh, this would be great to add on. So the extra rooms came in very handy at that time. One story was LipiFlow was starting at that time, and it was like very big. Everybody was getting it. We had several offices in town that had it. So I'm reading on the science, I'm reading on all of this, and I'm looking at the cost of LipiFlow to add to our first dry eye instrument. And this gentleman, our rep at that time, said, yeah, everything is good. I've got your paperwork. We're all ready to sign. Now he's coming in from Dallas to give us a nice dinner, then we can sign off. In that week, I read about radio frequency. Okay. So that, again, this is 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I told my partner, I said, I think there may be something better. And then you have like an aesthetic look to this. And he goes, no, no, no. We're going to go with LipiFlow. And I said, okay. And I said, but this is fraction of the cost. Because at that time, it was just emerging and people really didn't even think about radio frequency for dry eyes. It was more aesthetic and so forth. So it literally was almost one third the cost of a LipiFlow at that time. So we had incorporated radio frequency way back then. So now we have our technician who trained on it. She's still thankfully with me. 11 years she's been doing radio frequency.
That's incredible. I think you're the first person I've heard that started radio frequency that long ago.
Oh, that long ago. Yeah. So we had Cynosure Peleve, and I kind of talked to the board and I said, like, nothing, you're just doing like a hot compress kind of situation. We went through all the paperwork and, informed the patient. So it was me learning, okay, we're adding this now, which is different than anything that's been done before. But with the cost analysis at that time, I said, this sounds like it might be a good thing. And so that led then to more curiosity. What else is out there? What else is out there? What can we add here? What can we add here? So I started IPL. It will be 6 years this fall. So that came in. So, I mean, just one thing morphed into another. So I'm always like, okay, what else is out there I can do? What else is out there I can do? So last summer we incorporated PRP. So we do PRP drops in the office. So I actually have a staff member who is a phlebotomist. So in my severe autoimmune patients, when nothing is working, that's the direction to go. We spin the blood. The patients go home with their PRP drops within less than 40 minutes. It's just phenomenal. And I was looking and I was reading, this actually started because of a patient. I just couldn't get her the relief. She's severe Sjogren patient. Yeah. So I'm looking at serum tears, and then I'm reading. She's like, she's already tried the serum tears with our corneal specialist and didn't have the effect that she wanted. So when I read and I said PRP, so I reached out to Dr. Madan, actually. She wrote an article and I said, can you teach me how to do this? And she's like, yes, I can. Here is what you need. And that started that. So then I said, well, I need somebody to draw blood. So then I had to go looking for a tech who is trained in phlebotomy. And so one thing led to another. And so my husband sometimes like, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to have fun and help my patient. So that just slowly morphed into more and more. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I love. So I'm hearing a theme of staying on the cutting edge of
Yes.
care,
Yes.
and then doing your homework and doing your research in terms of like actual research, right? In terms of like, hey, what works and what doesn't, and then making a cost benefit analysis if it doesn't make sense. And it's interesting because you're getting in early enough where it's not that expensive. RF is really expensive now, but it's way more affordable. And they weren't even optometry specific machines. Cynosure is typically a dermatology machine.
Right, exactly. And so when I reached out to them, they're like, what kind of doctor are you? Like, what, So they were like, we don't, and I said, yes, I just want to use it around the eye for this purpose. And you look at the science behind it, it had the temperature for the melting of the meibomian glands. I mean, at that time we couldn't visualize them. It was just under the slit lamp, but it just made sense. And I said, okay, we're going to, and I said, it might be a bust. I had to do a presentation to my partner at that time. Like, we need to do this. So the poor guy that was supposed to come from Dallas for LipiFlow, I called him and I said, oh, please don't come down. We changed our minds. Because, and so my partner's like, he could at least came and give us a dinner. And I said, that's not going to fly. So, but yeah, so these things, I think, I remember going probably first, second year. I've always gone to Vision Expo East because it's so easy for us to get to Amarillo. From Amarillo, it's very hard to get to anywhere. There's only direct flights to Dallas and Vegas. So Vegas was my to go to for all the education. And I would always sit in Dr. Randall and Thomas's lectures, and they would be packed full, amazing lectures. But one thing they would always, always say at the end is, doctors, make sure you read, make sure you read, make sure you read, make sure you read. And that kind of stuck with me. So I constantly am on blogs, listening to podcasts now, reading my journals. So anything that comes out, newsletters and emails. And I think that really helps me. Hey, this is coming. Look for this. Look for this. So like I said earlier, the researchers are just phenomenal now. So there's no reason to be behind on this. So I'm telling patients, the new Closey drop came out for presbyopia for the pilocarpine. And I've been telling patients about it for almost 8 months. So when it comes out, I said, it's coming. Let's try it out. Do you want to be on a list? When it comes out, we can call you. I don't know a whole lot about it, but it seems pretty promising. So the patients are excited when you're excited, right? So this might be something that can help me, doc. And I was like, yep. So I have like 10 patients who wanted to sign up and do this prescription as soon as the week it came out. So I was like, well, I have to learn how to prescribe it because I don't know how to prescribe it. And so I said, let me learn, give me another week or so. And so we have patients actually trying it. So then you get the feedback. Hey, it worked for me. It didn't work for me. And so if it works for that 2 patients, I think that's great. Right. So yeah.
And you have enough patients where you probably have enough scale where it's like, okay, you probably makes it financially worthwhile to have almost any kind of product that's needed.
Yes, to try out quite a bit, yeah. So, I know there is another big thing that came out, I don't remember, 4 years, 5 years ago, was Novatel's 4C home monitoring system for dry macular degeneration. And so when it first got FDA approval, I was all on board, and I called the company, I said, "Let me send me some brochures," so and so. For us, especially, we have a lot of older patients. We have only one retina group that has 4 doctors now. They all see 100 patients each every day. So the waiting to see them is literally 4 or 5 hours, and these older patients, sometimes we are, like, at the heart of several, smaller towns. So the closest is Dallas, 6 hours, Oklahoma City is about 4 hours, Albuquerque, 4 hours, Santa Fe, 4 hours. So it's very we're in the middle where a lot of, patients come to drive sometimes 2 hours. I have patients from 5 states because 'cause we're in the corner tip of Texas, yeah. So these patients come in, very mild macular degeneration, need to be monitored, having to drive 2 hours, So this technology was like, "Why not? Why are we not doing this?" So all my patients who qualify, I'm like, "There you go," and most of their insurances is covering it. So I've had 2, 3 patients come in as new referrals, and they were like, "Well, my neighbor told me," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I have macular degeneration. Do you think I could qualify for this instrument?" It's like, "Okay, let's see. Why did not my other doctor talk to me about this?" I get that a lot, and I'm like, "I can't speak for them. They're my friends. They're phenomenal doctors, right? But it's just the way I feel my outlook on patient care, and that just pushes it to the next step of what can we do? What can we do? So, and we've had actually probably a handful of patients that were 20/20 that turned wet, and
Wow.
we called them that day. They still have 20/20 vision because
That's incredible.
that monitoring system caught it rather, and then they were in. I said, "You need to get yourself down here. We got to get this taken care of." And so,
So tell me, so if well, from our conversations too, you also have, like we talked about a little bit aesthetics in addition to all this.
yes, yes. So,
Why go down that route too?
right. So the radio frequency, I think, started all of that. And so my partner, he would not talk about dry eye. He was a little bit older than me. And he would not really say dry eye, but he would say, well, it seems like you have some wrinkles. And I was like, that's not how we should approach this. Because of course, females especially, I don't want to be told, oh, you have wrinkles all in your face. And so then I said, okay, let's talk about what's happening around the eye. And that's kind of where it started. So as we were kind of discussing a little bit, laxity around the eyes that can actually cause structural changes, which can of course lead to more functional dry eye because of more structure rather than just the tear system and so forth. So when that happens and you're talking about the laxity, you're like, oh yeah, and it can actually give you an aesthetic look of tightening with the collagen around the eyes. That's what, radio frequency does. So that conversation led to, well, what should I put around my eyes? And I was like, I don't know. I grew up with oil of Olay and SPF. So for me, it was like, okay, let me learn. Let me learn about some of the cosmetics because they were asking me now. And I'm like, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that. So, which led me to start reading more on aesthetics and cosmetics and eye makeup and so forth. And then, and of course, we have phenomenal doctors now that talk about all of this. So now the resources are there. So I'll guide my patients. So go to Eyes of the Story or, We Love Eyes. And so now there's makeup that can help patients. And it's just, I think one thing led to another, right? So it wasn't like I was looking to add on, but patients kept asking. And so I'm like, okay, let's see. So that led to adding medical grade skincare in the office. So, and they're like, who are you? We don't deal with optometrists. That was what I was heard for one of the medical grade. And I was like, well, I have this radio frequency from Sanisure. Oh, you have that? Okay, yeah, sure. We'll get you an account started. And so I think I was going into territory I didn't even know we couldn't go into because of the licensure and so forth. And so then sometimes I stumbled and it was a roadblock and it didn't go further. But a lot of times doors opened up in different ways that I wasn't expecting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And it's really kind of neat to see your journey. It was a combination of, um, you have enough patience where you can try new things. You're always
Right.
on the cutting edge. You've got, hey, let's be opportunistic about it and just see where it goes. And
Yeah.
you let it build over time. It's just, again, it's a stacking of things over time. You know, it's like, oh, I can't do your refraction because I don't have a slit lamp, right?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
it builds from there.
Yeah. My kids are always making fun of me now that they're much older. But when they were in school, they're like, why are you studying? Aren't you done with school? And I'm like, no, I have to learn. I have to read my journals. We'd be on vacation in Hawaii when the kids were little, and I'm reading my optometric journals. So I would have some fun books on the side, but I was like, I have to catch up. And this was way before all of the podcasts and stuff. But yeah, my husband, he's like, okay, can you give it a break with your eye stuff? Because I'm tired of your eye stuff. Because I can talk and talk about eye stuff all day long.
Well, it's funny because I think I'm a really curious person too, so I like to think about that. It's interesting you mentioned that because full disclosure, I actually invested in a company that has this new technology coming out
Yeah.
with it basically retrains your brain how to see through the blurriness of my presbyopia. So
So is that Revital Vision?
no, it's a different
It's a
company.
different company? Okay,
Yeah.
super cool. Because we just incorporated that into our practice as well. So I have now 10 patients doing that, so it's very exciting stuff. So I'm waiting to hear feedback from them as they finish their program and stuff, so
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's mild nearsightedness. Yeah, I think there's some similarities. Yeah,
Hilarious,
it's probably
right?
very
Yeah.
similar to that.
Yep.
Yeah,
But it's just
it's like
exciting things. And at least the patient and I always tell, I have 4 associate doctors now, but I always tell them anything eye related, your patient should feel they can come to you and talk to you about it. They shouldn't be hearing it on the news first. They should be hearing it from you first. So that's, I feel like what makes patient care even to the next level
yeah.
is you're on the cutting edge. And I was in a conference in Canada about 2 years ago, and it was a phenomenal speaker. I forget her name, but she said, "You need to. Everybody needs to go on TikTok." And I was like, "Oh my god, what is this? Like, oh, who's going on TikTok?" And he's like, but it made sense in a way because when she explained it, she said, "Your patients are getting information from TikTok that they think is medical advice, so you should at least know what's out there." And so I was like, okay, I'm going to be an experimenter and just kind of peruse what's out there on TikTok. Now I have social media TikTok videos that are going on. So my surgeons are calling me oh, Jaya, you're on TikTok now? I'm like, yeah, I'm on TikTok now. So,
You're everywhere.
so one thing again led to another. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit more about current challenges.
yeah,
Are you facing? You're kind of rural.
yeah.
Are you facing staffing challenges like
Oh
most
yeah.
other folks? Yeah,
It's been, that's probably the biggest challenge right now is to keep good staff. And because as I'm kind of making a note to try to get them all on the same page with music and stuff, it has become very, very challenging. They'll get trained, stay 2, 3 weeks, move on, don't show up, are late, and especially in where we're at, there's a limited amount of people that would apply for those jobs that And it has become very, very challenging. So I try to do, and I think we all try to do when we have really good staff, try to take care of them to the best of our ability. They're a family. And some of our new staff members come in and then they'll comment, say, your patients are so needy. God, And I'm like, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, right? Because I said they should feel needy. We're here to help them. So they'll make phone calls and we need to make sure we take care of them. And that's what it's about. It's almost like a family business, right? So patients feel like they're coming to visit family. So that's very hard to try to replicate to your staff members that might be there just for a paycheck. So, and I think the staff members that get it, stay, and our longest staff member now is 15 years old. Yeah, she's been with us 15 years. So almost since the advent of our private practice. So it's been a blessing. So, but of course, you need more than one, two staff members that are with you for a long time. So the challenges are, how do we keep up? How do we take care of phone calls? How do we, so forth and so forth. Um, and it's being in a small community, I think also the name now, it's a funny name, my last name. So people were like, "Oh, are you related to so and so doctor?" My husband is a physician, so I'm like, "Yes, I am." And so the medical community kind of knows the name, so we do get a lot of referrals. So in that sense, there are people that sometimes when I do put it out there that we need a new staff member for something, it's a little bit easier to get, but the hard part is keeping them and making sure that they're in tune with the culture of the practice too. That's a huge
Yeah.
part of it.
I think in healthcare in general, I've heard like 18 months, 16 to 18
Yeah,
months is actually
yeah,
good now,
yeah.
right? If you can get someone that long without turning over in the industry, it's apparently, and that's healthcare in general.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So yeah, so if you're doing good 15 years, that's pretty.
15 years, yeah. And I will tell you though, I guess some people say you should be more, I don't know, like holding on and should be a little bit more selfish, but I have actually 5, no, 5, yeah, so 5, she's in, school, she's graduating actually this year, so 5 people that have worked for me that are now optometrists.
Oh wow.
So we just yeah, they started out as patients, then they started working with me, and now and then we have, one in medical school, and we have another young man who's actually 2nd year of optometry school. So one is in nursing school. So when I see these young people that come and start working with me and you see their potential, I really wanna push them to the next level, and I'm like, "Take the test, go do the test, how are you studying?" And so forth. And so my husband's like, they're going to leave you if you, and I said, but they need to go to the next level, right? When you see this person that's going to be a great, whatever they want to do, like be an optometrist or an MD or whatever. So my young scribe that was with me 2 years, I was like, you need to go. So she's in med school and she wants to come back and do retina in our community. So, I feel very passionate about patient care. And I think that's kind of rubbed off on a lot of my staff, good or bad. So I lose a lot of good staff because I'm pushing the way to do more.
You're like, that's pretty. So I'm hearing a constant theme of caring. Care about your patients, care about your clinic and business, you care about your staff. You want to see the best for folks,
Oh, yeah,
which
absolutely.
is really cool perspective. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd reflect that back. That's pretty neat
Yeah.
perspective. So you're on the cutting edge of stuff all the time. What are you seeing out there that's really cool right now? Like what's out there that you're like, oh, I'm excited about this, either with your
Well,
businesses or with treatments.
yeah. So I think, AI, of course, is the big
Mhm.
thing. And then, I mean, it's not even the big thing. We're in it now, right? It's how to incorporate it into our day to day that we can make it a little easier. So we're trying out your new little project there. So we're very excited about that. So I always feel there's so many things probably that come into mind, but how can we make it easier? How can we make it easier for us? How can we make it easier for the patient without losing the care? That was always so I went in one day, I think it was a couple of years ago, and I was like, my dog had some kind of procedure done. So it was so easy to drop off, pick up, bring him back. The next morning, I get a text. How is she doing? How is the procedure? Then in the evening, the doctor called. How is she doing? And so forth. And I'm like, how come my dog got better care? And I was like, well, this is like what, And it was a very easy process for me. It wasn't so, obviously it was totally different care than what we provide, but it just made me think, I was like, why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? Why can't we make it easier for our patients? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? So I think when I start asking those questions, then I start looking at what's out there to help me with this. And so I recently started visiting bigger practices. So I went to an amazing practice. Most people know Dr. Sorensen, just kind enough. And so went and visited her practice for 2 days. And I took two key staff members, placed them at different areas, and such wealth of knowledge. And obviously, since a little different demographics than Amarillo, but it was like, how can we incorporate that into our practice? And how can we make it easier for us? So we're getting ready to go next month to Oklahoma City to shadow another practice. So I always feel like taking a day off or two from clinic and shadowing other doctors, listening to other doctors. So I'm always listening to podcasts. My kids hate when they get in the car with me because if I Care podcast comes on and I'm there like, oh, mom, please. So it's always learning, and it's learning to say, I said, if I could grab one little tip that makes it easier for us, right? So I think the love of learning keeps me going. I don't know if I love learning on other topics, but for for eye care and my practice, I think it's just, yeah. So how to incorporate AI is the next step into the practice. So when you do have those staff members who don't show up, or, I often tease to my patients, you might be coming in and there might be a robot reading you. I don't know. You just be prepared for next year what may come. So, so we'll see. We'll see.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. So I'd be curious about your perspective. Like, you have any curious to hear about a story that's important to you that made you who you are? Could have been when you were much younger or more recently, but can you share with us like a story about why it kind of made you who you are today?
Um, I grew up in New York, and my dad was a professor, organic chemistry professor. My mom was at home, and I was a tomboy. So I grew up in a brownstone in the Bronx, actually. And when we immigrated to this country, I was 7. And so after school, like, we just go play, but our landlord was first generation, Italian immigrant. So he was, kinda like my grandparents' age, and he taught me a lot of stuff. So he'd be like, "Jaya, get over here. Let me show you how to screw a light bulb. Let me show you how to do" you know? And so one thing, and I'm like, "Okay, George, teach me this and teach me this." And so, um, anytime I'd get an opportunity, he taught me how to cook Italian food. He taught me how to, what a Phillips screwdriver was. And so dad was busy, and he probably didn't even know a Phillips screwdriver from anything else. So anytime the TV was broken, they'd be like, come look at this. And so my mom would always call me, or so my sister couldn't even care less about that. So for me, I think just fixing little things, doing little things kind of led me to more curiosity, learning more, learning more. And when I went to college, I was pretty much bent on going to medical school. So I wrote my MCAT, did everything, got my submissions in, got actually an acceptance. And then that was at that time when my husband started residency. And I was looking at it, and this was way back in the early 90s, mid 90s, where, residency was crucial, like bad. It was like 32-hour calls. It was just horrific. And so I would just see his life, and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. And I think that just was like, so I went in senior year, like December, right before Christmas break. And I told my advisor in college, I was like, I don't think I want to go to medical school anymore. She was like, you already got in. What are you talking about? I was like, I don't think I want that lifestyle. And so I was like, what else is out there? So optometry was not even anything that I was looking at. So she said, well, you could be a pharmacist, you could be a nutritionist. And have you thought about optometry? And I was like, my eye doctor? And he was a very old man who told me never to wear eyeliner. And that's all I remember. And I was like, okay. So I applied to NYU School of Nutrition and I got accepted. So that was a path that I was like, okay, that's my safety net. Then I applied to SUNY and I didn't have a lot of options of travel. So SUNY was it or go to be a nutritionist. So they put me on a wait list because I won't say she's very pronounced optometrist now. She was my interviewer. She said, you don't know what it means to be an optometrist. And actually, I didn't. My scores were stellar. I was like 4.0. Oh, tests were great. Everything was amazing, except I really didn't know what it meant to be an optometrist. This was like, and I was like, well, this is a backup cushion for me from med school. So, but then they had me go visit 5 practices in New York, which is very interesting. And I had to write an essay on every single visit. So one was a low vision, one was at that time a GP lens. So the day I visited, it was a full day. It was a really, really interesting case that came in. And it was a phenomenal doctor doing, at that time, he was a keratoconist, so she was doing a specialty RGP lens on him. And he came in for his follow-up. And I was in the room watching as she checked his vision. And he looked at her and he said, do you know how good it feels to look across a courtroom and see a person I'm putting away for jail and look at his face when the verdict comes in? So this was actually a district attorney at that time who wanted to look at the faces of the felons he was putting away, but he couldn't because of his vision. And he had this amazing smile on his face. And I was like, oh my God, that's so touching. Like it made me start thinking beyond my eye doctor and me getting a little small prescription filled versus what vision does. And so once I kind of started seeing that a little bit more, it was like you're really impacting people's lives. And we do that every day. And it may be the -2 first-time patient versus a scleral lens patient. And so that story kind of made me say, okay. And I was still on, like they put me on as a, not a shoe-in, but they had me on a wait list. So I called every week and I said, listen, I got to pay my due for my nutrition or I'm going to come here. And so Roberto at that time, the counselor, he's like, fine, they let you in. I was like, okay, this is it. So after my essays were submitted, he said, okay, you got in, you're good. So that was it. And so I always say optometry kind of chose me. I didn't choose optometry, but what a passionate career that life has led me to, because that same story actually happened about 6 years ago, where I actually had a regional district attorney come in, keratoconus, and he was one of my first scleral lens fits. And he came in for his follow-up and he said, Doc, when you released me with these lenses, I actually sat in the parking lot. Now, this is like a 60-year-old man, right? He said, I sat in the parking lot and I cried. And I said, you cried? He said, because for the first time in my life, I could actually see like God wanted me to see. And for me, that was a very emotional moment. But those stories every day is just like something, and you would never even think about it. You just see him as a scleral fit. Let me adjust this. Let me adjust this. And so there's so many stories like that that I'm just so blessed to have those patients. And sometimes I'm like, cry. We're gonna cause more dry eye, and you're gonna make me cry and me have dry eye. So, but
I can't cry anymore. I'm
I,
cried out. Yeah. That's a pretty cool story. I like it. It kind of tells your why, right? I
yeah.
think it's a good theme. It's awesome. And so let's, if you were to go back, right, like a week after you graduate OD school, I'm going to give you, we'll try to be creative here. Give me in like 2 sentences, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Maybe not be so optimistic. I don't know.
Hmm, interesting. Okay.
I'm always looking at the
Be more
glass.
of a Debbie Downer. That's
I don't know. And I think sometimes being so optimistic has led me to lessons. And maybe, it's just the way it's supposed to be. You always learn from the mistakes and the falls you've had, and that makes you stronger for the next, right? So maybe it was a good thing, but it's just, I don't know what, because I was like, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this. Um, but maybe, I don't know. I didn't want to move to the smaller town because I grew up in New York all my life, and moved here for my husband's job, and I hated it. Hated it. I was like, what am I doing in this little town? I went to McDonald's for my 2-year-old, and the lady was like, why don't you just pull up? And I was like, what do you mean pull up? And then she goes, we're making the fries right now. And I was just so rude. And I told the young lady who was probably just doing her best, she said, you call this fast food? You see that? That's fast food. McDonald's is fast food. And this is not fast food. I'm having to wait for French fries. That was my New Yorker at that time. So, and she just looked at me and she's like, okay, but you'll still have to pull up because I've got to cook the rice.
Like, I still can't give it to you, right? It's like, yeah, it's funny.
So, and I just was like, okay, well, what am I yelling for? What am I? So there's some things in life that are just going to happen the way they're going to happen, whether you do this or you do that, right? So in that sense, maybe having a little more patience, I would teach my younger self. So, which I've earned as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think that's good advice at any age.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Oh. So, Jaya, if people want to reach out to you and connect with you, where can they connect with you and find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. Of course, I'm on TikTok at I Care Plus. But I, Dr. Pathapati at icareplus.com. So anytime people are free to email me and just, I love talking to doctors. I love going to meetings. I've met such wonderful friends over the years. And so some of my younger friends, they're like, you're the reason I started private practice. And it was just, something that happened in a conversation at the bar, having a glass of wine after class, and I'm like, really? Me? I did it. So, and one of my dear friends in North Carolina, she's now building a 10,000 square foot office. So fast forward 6 years ago when we had our talk at the bar she's like, you're the reason I decided to do this. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, it's really, and that's inspiring to me, saying, okay, so let me learn from you now. How are you doing this? How are you? So it's always fun. I think collaborating with colleagues is just we have such an amazing profession. And I think we try to lift each other up and try to really help by like, oh, I did this, try this. So, which I absolutely love in our field. So.
And I appreciate those sentiments. And I do agree that the industry is nice and connected.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good community.
Yeah, it is a good community, great community.
Jaya Pathapati, thank you again for being a guest on the show.
No, thank you, Ankit. It was wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And thank you, audience. If you learned anything or liked anything, please subscribe and share the YouTube or the podcast or both. And Jaya Pathapati, thank you again for being on the show. This has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.